Good morning. Excuse the sounds of the coffee maker, or embrace it. But for the moment, I'm going to show you how it looks outside of the window here. Because that's a pretty epic view. So it's going to get a little shaky for a moment. It's a nice fog outside. Good morning. And after this morning coffee, as it's my first Sunday off and only Sunday off until the end of September, I'm going to go out in the fog and take some pictures and record some videos. And perhaps make some interesting music to it too. Make something atmospheric. I'll see what I can do with the view and the surrounding area. And now I have 6 cups of coffee ready. So let's get good and caffeinated. Guten Morgen. Indeed, and most of all, it's inevitable inspiration. For some other reason, my alarm didn't go off. That's why I was a few minutes late. But I woke up about 10 minutes ago, ran down to get the coffee maker, and now I'm here. Yesterday I woke up at 4 in the morning to make this stream, but couldn't get the internet working. And it didn't work by resetting the router, so not much you can do about it. It's better to focus on what's working than what isn't. So I'm glad that the internet is back, and last night was a good stream, and not sure how this one will be as I'm in a haze a bit. I'm not hungover, but a little tired. Fortunately, it's less warm here right now. It's down to like 16, 17. So that's pretty pleasant. But of course, being in the attic floor on a restaurant, it's always some degrees warmer in here than it says that it is outside. Like I mentioned before to some people, I am used to being in over 40. That's no problem for me. But when you're working in it, that's completely different. And when you're trying to relax after 10 hours of work or more, it makes it different. I've never been the moody kind or a morning person, but to me, I'm the kind of person that can just get right up. And hi again. Nice to see you back, and both of you, of course. I slept well, though I could probably use a few more hours, but because I scheduled this stream and felt bad about not being able to do the one yesterday, I wanted to make up for it by making this one today. And as the statue and picture of this stream says, duty before all. There are some moments of yourself in your life where you don't matter and your emotions or your mood doesn't matter. And morning is definitely one of those moments that there can be some extent where you should embrace that. Well, I know that it's not my fault that the internet wasn't working, but emotions don't give a fuck about your other emotions, and your emotions don't really care about you. They are often unrealistic and unmotivated. They're a weird chain of reactions, alien chemistry. And woo! Welcome back and good morning. Yeah. So, not much to do about it than retry. And now we're here. I think I'm going to become sick from all the coffee, but it's going to be worth it. And since I woke up, I felt it was worth doing a stream here. Anyway, and as I said, I did promise it and schedule it. And one of the things that me and my boss agrees on is that if you can drink, you can work. In other words, if you can have time off work, you need to be prepared to getting back to work. Yeah, I have my day off today, so I'm technically free today. So that's another reason why I don't mind doing this, because I can always crash afterwards. But because it's a beautiful fog outside, and I don't know how many hours it's going to last, I'm going to go out into one of the conservatory places and one of the paths that goes around the mountain on the back of it, with my camera and record one of my walks there. So I think that's going to be a nice video because it's very green outside, and of course the fog is pretty white, or opaque. It's going to be like swimming in a sea of milk. And I have one of the benefits of working in a restaurant and a cafe, so beyond the unlimited supply of coffee, I have some other treats too. Oops, sorry about that. I hit the pop shield for one of the microphones. And good night too. Yeah, it should be pretty late at some places. That's one of the thoughts behind this, to catch those that are up late or getting up early like me. Yeah, not a customer, but someone, like where I showed in the fog, there's a lake there, and in that lake, it's maybe a kilometer away from here. Someone wasn't aware of the concept of swimming. Yeah, it's going to be a weird ASMR thing. Drunk or hungover. This is coconut milk based ice cream with salty caramel and chocolate. So anyone not eating this is at a loss. Yeah, it's a pretty wasteful thing of a 25-year-old to not be able to swim or have some judgment to not be in the water. I don't know which came first or last. And as for the question of how much coffee I'm planning on drinking, I'll show you. Oops. This is the amount. Well, I wouldn't call it a kid, but a young man or individual But 2 years ago, there was a 10-year-old kid that didn't know how to swim, and his parent didn't watch him, and he drowned too. So it's a thirsty lake, this one. Well, last year, no one got consumed by it. And I've heard of mountains consuming people, but not lakes. So maybe there's something to it. Of course, I feel drawn to it and feel like I should be in it. Sorry. 25 was the one from yesterday, and 10 was the one from 2 years ago. But 25 is definitely not a kid. That's the actual year when your brain is formed enough to be able to have a proper experience of cannabis or mushrooms compared to any years before. And the smaller lake, there is just like the buoys, like floating devices that you can use for saving people, but there's no one actively on duty. We don't really have that here, because in general we learn to swim when we are like 6 or 7 or 8 years old. So if you don't know what you're doing after that, that's on you. They didn't put lifeguards there 2 years ago when a 10-year-old drowned, so I don't think they're going to do that for a 25-year-old. And I know that YouTube isn't a fan of nudity, so I don't know how I'm going to be able to record myself jumping into that lake, but we'll find a way. And 1 cup down, a couple more to go. It's like a abstract art performance. Yeah, we have some beaches because we have lakes, and of course also a big coast close to the ocean. Yeah, that's true, Matt. You have a good point. Yeah, and I will definitely have time to meditate today. Though 6 cups of coffee won't help, but that's on me. But generally, when I work here or anywhere, I generally, sorry for overusing that word or term, I try to get up an hour before I'm supposed to, so I can meditate and be a bit in my head before I need to be out of it. And yeah, at some beaches, especially the ocean, it's going to be cold. And that's one of the benefits of a hot day, that you're drying pretty fast. So even if the water is cold, you dry fast. And I don't mind getting a water that's 10 degrees. And welcome back, Alvia. Yeah, I would definitely be up for the idea of having some listeners involved in the episodes to discuss some subjects or topics, and a way to more easily see you in the chat. As an example, I could make those guests like a moderator in the chat, and that way, you what you write would be more visible, both to me and to others. And I think, yeah, having some requests for subjects or topics in advance would also help a bit. It also depends on what. Because there's few things that I'm not for talking about, but it all depends on mood too. That's one of the benefits of drinking, that I'm more relaxed while drinking. So, and that goes for both coffee and beer. So it's easier for me to talk about things I wouldn't otherwise, though I might get moody then. And thank you, North Case, and welcome back. Nice to see our Australian in the chat. I guess it's a bit colder where you are than here. Yeah, it's been a busy weekend. Today will be less busy, but good. And as some of you can hear, the birds are happy. And hi to Mexico again. Nice to see you. I almost read that it's all you wear. Would that be funny? and I'm not familiar with how Discord works. And to me, I already have accounts at too many places, but when it comes to preparing for some streams, I guess it could be worth the sacrifice of my temperament or energy for at least someday. Though I'm not going to check it out today, not this week, but I will try to remember it for the future. I've seen it being mentioned in comments before. And I don't have any issues with how it works to set up different things. It's just the mental aspect of it all. That's why I'm not active on any social media or social networks or any platforms right now or the past half year, because just the thought of going into one of those rooms to me is like, I know that the room might be empty, but to me emotionally and mentally it feels like running into a crowded room like a train station. And yeah, you just can't escape that. And yeah, that's correct. It's all about the opposites, contradictions. I think it's an important aspect to explore. And I'm not sure about the term schizoid, what it entails. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. And thanks. I think it's an interesting song, and we used to perform it live 13 years ago, and people would think that we were making a joke because it's just one riff for 15 minutes, and people are used to 5-minute songs. And no, I don't have Twitter, and that's one of the platforms that I always felt adverse feeling to, because one of the few times that I've been making any posts on Facebook or other accounts, I always write long posts because I like dividing up things into different points, and I like writing things in detail, and you're not able to do that at that place, so it goes against everything that I'm interested in, both composing and sharing. And yeah, that song was Trans Like Void several years before that project existed. And a funny thing about that project is that it was created after a hypothermia concert where we actually performed that song. As for Life Lover and Narcotic Metal, that's something we came up with to define what we were doing, because we were always eating benzodiazepines when making the music. And then other people started using the term. So yeah, it's definitely a narcotic metal. Just like Batlam started the dark metal, Life Lover had to be its own thing. So we made narcotic metal. And that's where we have a song called Narcotic Devotion too. And yeah, I'm going to drink the whole pot of coffee. That's why I started drinking some water and having ice cream to not be on an empty stomach. Yeah, it's one of the benefits of streams that it gets me thinking about things too, or talking about subjects that I otherwise would forget or not think about. And from experience, I happen to know that my limit for drinking coffee when it comes to nausea is about 1 or 2 cups more than this, which leads to, yeah, vomiting pretty much. I should be able to avoid that here. And I don't really get high of coffee, just, yeah, it's coffee. It's a warm drink. The irony is that I would get tired from it. So I'm not sure if that's because if it's an overdose. Someone else probably knows better than me. And I've never listened to Benighted and Sodom. I know about the project. And I've read some interview in the past, maybe a decade ago or so. It's not for me. And I think I mailed with the guy sometime. Yeah, not for me. Yeah, that was from the tour we did with Nuit Noir. We did a 3-day tour in Germany and Belgium, where we started each ceremony with 100 cuts on our legs. As for the question about stopping taking pills, that's always been easy for me. It's just like drinking. It's either something I do or I don't. Yeah, that's true. The Heckle game was a good time. And there's a beer called Affligem from that place, which is good too. They make a good, both good double and a good triple. And yeah, it's definitely not DSP. I mean, that's a bullshit idea and concept. I'm completely against it. Yeah, I guess the stimulant aspect of it is true. Uh, Personally, I would get just tired and a bit shaky from it. And I can enjoy some Saster, like the EP Suicide and Dark Serenity, I think the title is. I haven't listened to it in a long time because I sold my vinyl of it to my friend Stefan of Svartelogen. Yeah, ritualistic minimalism is a three-part EP that I composed 11 years ago, and I have a place where I want to record it, which is a plan I made with the frontman of Nahash in Lithuania, because he has a great studio. But it's a bit off when it comes to traveling. So there are several reasons why it's not recorded yet. And beyond that, I keep losing drummers. So I'm searching for one right now. And hi again, Tom. Welcome back. And the time is right now it's 5:47, so it's getting closer to 6 in the morning here. We're up in 40 minutes on this stream. 30 minutes or less active ones. And yeah, I felt that's one of the benefits of the morning streams, to make a bit more family friendly content. Though I would never really describe myself or what I do as that. But and yeah, I'm still friends with Elin. We were written over the years. She lives in a different area of the country the past years. So when I stopped organizing my yearly ceremonies, we haven't been seeing each other since then. But we're still friends. I'm the kind of person that, unless you stab me in the back several times, I'm going to be there for you, more or less. And that's one of the reasons why I Still don't have anything against Niklas, though I have problems with some of his choices, but I consider that being his problem and not mine. So yeah, that's what I consider it as, that it's his problem and not mine, which goes to everything that he's saying or doing, because that's just a reflection of his character and not mine. And yeah, I'm not a hungover kind of person. It's very rare for me. It's probably a good idea to have some water between this cup and the next to not get too dizzy. And yeah, I tend to trust people. I try to follow the principle of wanting to be proven wrong, which means that I'm going to offer you what's available of me in exchange for wanting or requiring the same in return, because I'm not interested in half-assing anything. And if you're not going to be a part of that, you can simply say so, and I will respect that. But I prefer to have full, clear, and honest dialogue and trust in things that I do, which can mean being able to be quiet and not talking to. I have plenty of friends that I haven't talked to in both months and years, and I think it shouldn't mean anything. As for preferences of coffee, I don't really have any, besides that it needs to be at least freshly brewed, which means that it should be brewed and consumed within an hour, or it's going to develop a burnt, acrid taste, which I think if you serve that, that's completely unacceptable from a both quality control and customer service standpoint. And I've had some cafeterias, coffee shops that has offered that kind of bullshit, and I never think that's okay. Well, I'm unusually groomed for this season of the year, but I'm not sure. And if I have any favorite bass lines, yeah, but unfortunately it's not released yet. One of them is on one of my upcoming albums by that Deha is active in. And then, of course, there are some things that my friend Alex or Phil A. Cerrone is doing in Cal that is pretty amazing. If you listen to the song Fukta din aska from our second album that he composed, you'll see the extent of his genius and madness. And I think it's a good perspective to have, that some of you seem to have too. That You should know who's your friend and what you're defining as a friendship. But also that teaches you what that is. And I haven't read Dostoevsky. I've heard his works being quoted, but I need to be in a proper mindset to read things. And my problem with reading is the same as listening to anything, that if I'm working on my own works when it comes to philosophy, uh, I don't want to be inspired or affected by the works of others too much. So I tend to be stuck in that loop because I always prioritize my own work to the work of others. Time for a coffee refill. We're getting closer to the end. And there's a bit less of a fog outside, but it's still nice. And thanks. I tend to, when I compose music, I tend to, because I usually don't have access to bass, that I also try to incorporate it into the chords. So when I play guitar, a bass aspect is involved in it. And I'm not sure if anyone that I work with has seen anything that I do live. I've shown them some of my I've shown them some of my music, but live is different. And I think he might be referring to considered suicide than hypothermia, but yeah, with the majority of hypothermia's existence, it has lacked bass, of course. And it's definitely true that it's hard to find good bassists, and that's why I have one of the best ones in the genre. And it's true that, well, it's easier said than done to not expect anything from people, because it's usually in our nature to expect things out of ourselves and others. I think it's more connected to what we expect of ourselves than others that we project on others. And that's why we easily, more than not, become hurt. Because it's not just about what the other person isn't sharing, but what you yourself lack. or have a lack of. And that's always a painful realization to learn that about yourself, that you are open with your flaws. And more than a lesson on attachment, it's a recipe for attachment issues. But I understand the concept of it. The thought is good, but it's the implementation is less. And I think any adults agree and understand that. Yeah, definitely. Personally, I feel that I rather have expectations and be proven wrong, which doesn't matter if it's good or bad, than yeah, nothing. And yeah, I think so. It's not just a fact of life, but a part of life to learn acceptance. Uh, I think self acceptance and knowing your limits and your flaws, as well as your tolerance for the flaws of others, is important to gauge where you are on that spectrum, because that affects on how you interact with others and where you put yourself in the world. And I don't think that anyone that I work with has seen what I do live, but they've expressed interest in the plans that I have for what I'm doing here next week and some other plans for my future events. And thanks for the donation. I'm not sure what currency that is, but any donation is always appreciated, and I think it's the thought and the action that counts. So thanks. Yeah, everything and anything is a teacher or a teaching moment. Well, $1 is like a beer, so that's appreciated. And yeah, group therapy could be a concept or title for one of those episodes that Elvia suggested, where I have a more focused discussion or dialogue with someone of you in the comments. And we'll see when that happens. Yeah, I think to some extent a distraction from the conversation that some of you could have if I don't keep interrupting you and sharing my perspective on things. Yeah, I could go back to sleep and join you in an hour with some more coffee. See what happened in the chat meanwhile. And yeah, they definitely know that I'm an artist and that I make music. But I'm not really known in Sweden, and most people have no idea who I am or what I do. I don't really care about that. That's not something that I'm interested in. Like, it's more common when I'm in other countries that people ask me for pictures or autographs, but here in Sweden it doesn't really happen. But it would be amazing to return to the Pacific Northwest. I really enjoyed the time that I spent there last time, about a decade ago. So it would be a good time to return a decade later. And yeah, I agree that the right people will find you with time if you have patience. As for if I have any workout routine, just my walking, which is a lot. Like, I try to have moments where I run, and I haven't had time or the mental time for it the past month because I don't like it personally. But I consider it being one of those things that, even though you don't feel the benefit in real time, you notice it when it's gone. So I notice it when I walk up steep hills. If I don't do it frequently, I notice the lack of that part of me. But also, some days it can be beneficial and useful to do something that you don't like, because done in comparison, most other things that you do that day will be better. I almost feel a bit dizzy from this cup of coffee, and there is one left. So my mind might turn a bit trippy in a while. It's been a while since I had this amount of coffee. Like last stream, I had a cup less than this. I can blame this on the morning. And mentally, I feel like I should get to bed and rest soon. But seeing nature and that the fog is slowly dissipating and that I can see the lake through the fog, I should go out on the mountain before I take my nap to not miss the fog completely. So I think I'll stay here for about 10 minutes or so to finish the cup of coffee. I'm used to overcoming or feeling shitty, and I feel pretty good right now. Though I'm getting a bit annoyed with my mic stand because it should be fastened, but the microphone is slowly gliding downwards, though it should be. It's a pretty light one, which means that I need to secure it better. Hopefully it haven't affected the polarity too much. Because that would be unfortunate. Though I am speaking to the side of it, so maybe that's not the best angle. This should be better. I should capture some of the reflections from the wall. And yeah, my past streams I've had work instead of having a day off. But yeah, I have a cup left here. I do feel a bit dizzy, so I think it's a good mindset for taking a walk. Just like when you're slightly intoxicated, it's a good mood or feeling for a walk when you're light on your steps. I was tempted to continue pouring, but that would end up on the floor. So well, I'm committed. I'm not the kind of person that gives up. And fortunately, it's a nice breed from outside. And my shirt says love is doing wherever is necessary. Oh. It's definitely the right amount of coffee to do that. And I've swam through some intense streams in the past without drowning, so I think I know when I sense a cramp coming and how to avoid it. But right now I don't feel like carrying around tripods and stuff like that. So I'm not going to take a swim tonight or this morning, but maybe in a week or two. And a day off is a good time to focus on meditation and being out in nature and make sure you're not wasting it. It's a good exercise in discipline. But as it's a Sunday, most stores that sell anything fun are closed. So I'll just enjoy being sober for a day. Not accounting for the caffeine high, of course. It's like the sober man's drug. It could be the wind. There is a breeze coming through the window, and I have a setup of both a windshield and a pop filter on the microphone, but there could be some wind coming through. I used to have a post box where I lived before because my house didn't have a mailbox. So instead, I had post box 15 when I lived in Vartofta. So I could have it in the future. But I'm not against it. But also, I'm not the kind of person that feels any care or worry about sharing my personal address. So I've given that to people to send stuff to in the past. And the only reason why I wouldn't do it right now in this moment is because I'm 2 hours away from my home. And unfortunately, if you send something, it would get sent back. And also, the past year, the post offices here have been becoming more strict with adding taxes to anything. So the problem is that if someone sends me something, I will have to pay taxes for it. And I can't afford that risk because I don't know how much I would or might receive. And if it's in a month where I don't have an income, that would literally ruin me. So unfortunately, that's the main reason why I wouldn't accept getting packages or letters from anyone. my addresses have been public, and I put them on the back of any order that I send out from my web shop. So usually people don't show up. And I think it's prettier in the autumn, but I've recorded some walks the past week when I had a day off of walking through the forest where I live to the city. But it's not worth the. It would cost me a bit more than 30 euros to travel to where I live. And I don't think that's worth that expense this week. So I'm saving that for another time. And I'm also saving that for taking another trip to a village or city nearby to record some guitar videos. Well, I think I have one or two beanies that I saved, but I could, if you want a logo one, but I could also make one with this sigil, and I could do that in a month or less. I could do it in a week because I'm getting my paycheck in a week from now. And as for how I'm doing, Daniel, I'm fine. Just a bit caffeinated. Obviously, not tired anymore. And I can't deny that morning beer would be pretty tasty. But it would be weird to like usually I'm the kind of person that drinks beer in the morning. So I don't mean that that would be weird, but my boss is coming here in maybe 30 minutes. And it would be odd to greet him with a beer bottle in my hand. Although he understands my process and he knows that I'm an artist. And yeah, definitely. I know that I at least have one that I had it reserved for someone that never paid for it, and he had enough months to claim it. And so I'll put it up in the shop for you, so you will be able to see that going from 0 to 1 in the stock. I'll do that after this stream, and hopefully no one else takes it from you. And usually I'm working here in the summer, which means that I don't have weekends off, but I have weekdays off. And Stockholm is like maybe 3 hours north of here, so I would be able to go to the studio where we have the rehearsal space with Cal. So we could definitely do something. And I do plan on making some new hypothermia tops or other wear this summer too. I'll do my best to remember that. Yeah, I should be able to make like a dozen at least. And it sounds good about the trip. And there are some interesting places in Stockholm that you should visit, so I could show you some nice nature areas. Yeah, sounds like crop tops is requested, so I'll make sure that happens. One of the problems is that I've done that in the past when people have requested stuff, and then I ended up with a box full of shirts that no one got from me. But as I mentioned before, I rather trust people and do things anyway and be proven wrong. So it's up to you to prove that you are on the right side. So I'll I'll definitely consider that being worth the chance. And I prefer making this sigil than a logo. But I could make the hypothermia logo too, because it's been a couple of years that I made any tops, and yeah, I could consider doing both. But because you are active in the chat, I can take that request. So the majority of votes wins. But I could make a dozen of each. And first come, first served. And hopefully you don't miss it. That would be very ironic that you request a top and then someone else buys it before you. But I'm not going to do that. I think not just for the oddity of it, but also that there might be. It's different when you make shirts, but if you might make other custom branding stuff, you usually have to buy 100 of something as a minimum, or 1,000 of something, and I don't want 1,000 of them. That's literally a fuck ton. Well, I'll see what happens in the future. Just out of curiosity, I will actually look into it, but I think crop tops are a higher priority. Yeah, I'm officially out of coffee and out of water, so I'm going to get out in the fog and make some pictures and videos and try to make a soundtrack for that so I can post it in the upcoming days. And I think that sounds like a pretty good offer. So I will investigate a printer to make some crop tops, and I'll put that in my web shop as a pre-order, and then you can simply order the amount that you want, and there won't be any pressure on me or you how many you get. So that's no problem at all. I have enough idea of where I'm going. And yeah, sleeveless shirts is something that I enjoy a lot too, because I don't like this feeling of something grabbing me. So that's next on my list because it's also convenient to have at work under the work clothes. So next up in the web shop is crop tops and sleeveless shirts, and then we'll see where we go from there. And thanks, and you are most welcome. And yeah, thanks to those of you active in the chat and for the merch requests. It's good ideas, and I'm definitely going to put those into action and fabric. And I'll see you on the next stream, and I'll make sure to make some videos until then. And thanks. Take care. And as always, thanks for watching and listening and spending time in the chat here. And it's a nice community here. We'll see what we can turn it into. And no, I won't have coffee for a while. See you next time. Take care.